Good afternoon, team. Good morning. Happy Friday. We have Friday Flex for you today. And every week, what we do is we bring on a guest, and we have Coach Mike Greer again for the second week in a row. And we're just going to sum up the NFL Draft 2026. We'll talk about the highs and the lows, the goods, the bads, the secret picks, and those that might be a break or a bust. And then we'll get into the NBA playoffs, and then we'll get into the opening season of the WNBA. I'm really curious to see what Coach Greer and Erin have to say about that. But first of all, Coach Greer, Erin, good morning. What did you guys think about the final and the 2024 NFL Draft? We'll start with you, Coach Greer.
I think it was need-based. Everybody, kind of got their needs. Being from the Bay Area, I'm kind of biased. The 49ers, I think they did a tremendous job as far as filling holes, because people, in the draft, these draft guys are talking about, hey, this, and they should have got this and should have got that. You got to remember, the 49ers are young.
Yeah.
I mean, they are so very young that what we have is going to be in addition to with the kids that we picked up. And we just have to develop. And, it's funny when you said NBA. I was talking to my wife the other day about OKC. OKC was horrible, but what happened? They got 5 number 1 draft picks.
Right.
Now they're the best team in basketball.
Yep.
So that's what happens. It's not about tanking. It's not about anything other than making the right moves. And I think a lot of teams made good moves. Cincinnati made some good moves. Denver made some really good moves. They had to shore up their O-line. The Raiders made some good moves, because any move is good for the Raiders, because it's like, dude, they've been going sideways for a while. But there was some good value there. I don't know, Miami made some good moves. I don't know if the ones that are on top really benefited, because they didn't, when you pick your pick number 38, or you're the last guy picked, or, in the first round, I mean, there's value, but then again, it's, you got to really look at your needs. I think that quarterback situation in the Raiders is going to be good, because the kid is really going to learn. And even if he does get thrown in there, he's got a veteran sitting there going, nah, don't do that. Yeah, do this. Don't do that. So that's where I think they benefited from.
Excellent. Coach, before we get into the next subject or talk a little bit more, give the audience a little background on who you are, because your credentials speak for themselves, and I want the audience to really understand who you are and the fact that you played for the Raiders as well, so it gives you credibility.
Well, I'm an old head. I went to University of Pacific, graduated a small college All-American, got territorially drafted in the USFL. Played with the Invaders and the LA Express until Steve Young took all the money and the league folded. And being from Oakland, and my, distant uncle was Jack Tatum, and he took me to every practice, everything. I grew up with Freddie Belendikoff Jr., Freddie Belendikoff, Jim Otto, Upshaw, everybody, Madden. So that's where my history comes from. The Raiders kept me, released me, kept me, because I was hometown. I played some good games there, had a lot of fun. Went with the Falcons for a while, played for Clyde Humphreys, which is an old school, old name.
Right.
And played against Walter Payton, Earl Campbell. I played against some dudes that were dudes. And so it was a lot of fun. After I stopped playing, and I went into coaching, coached some college ball, St. Mary's University, a lot of junior college ball. And got in with the Steelers in the minority program, the Rooney program. That's what we used to call the minority program, because that's all that was there. So they let us in and let us coach, and that was a great experience. Helped me with my college coaching career, but it did give me an end to the NFL. I worked with Blesto for about 20 years in their scouting department. Where scouting was scouting. We would evaluate every senior of the existing draft year, 7-page report. Now it's like a page and a half, and all these projections. But, that gave me my scouting background. And then I got into, scouting, training, evaluation, placement of free agents. Worked with a great agent, Angelo Wright, who was a monster. He's the only guy that actually sued Al Davis, that was fun when I was working with him. But my background is training athletes, talking to athletes, evaluating them personally, giving them detailed write-ups. The biggest thing about being an evaluator, and these athletes need to understand, anybody can tell you you're playing terrible and you're not very good. But if they can give you correctable feedback, that's the key. That's what I try to do. I've coached basketball at a high level, coached college basketball, coached in, some pro women's basketball. Love women's game. Shout out to Don Staley with South Carolina. Love their organization. But and that's me, man. It's just if you play hockey, I can teach you how to play better. If you're an old lineman, I can teach you how to block somebody in the telephone booth. My thing is just looking at the athlete's strengths and building from that, whether you're it's career to career, whether it's 8 to 30. I can coach you up, and it's a lot of fun. Love it. Got grandkids that are nationally ranked basketball and football. My granddaughters are 9 and 10, and they're ranked in the nation as far as soccer. So yeah, I guess they come from a good tree.
Yeah, they do.
That's who I am.
That's it. So we love to talk about the draft, and it's almost turned into like primetime entertainment. But I want you to get into those stats that you talked about last week, because it absolutely blew me away. Just because you get drafted and just because you can excel at college doesn't mean you're going to excel at the pros. I think last time you said, and I don't want to misquote you, you said something about since 2015, like only 30% or 40% of the first 2 rounds actually make a career past 3 years. And then rounds 4 through 8 last like 70%. Could you kind of get into that a little bit and what your philosophy is and why you think so?
Well, I think, it's you have to put value and numbers on these guys coming out. They do that for at least a month. I mean, I watched a month of projections, a month of draft boards. This is what I think, and this is, in looking at the film, this is what I think. It's easy to rank Ohio State. It's easy to rank Alabama, Michigan, the bigs, Oregon. It's easy to rank those guys. But when you really get into the meat of it, then you want to look at, your smaller schools. You want to look at what they're doing. And small means how the NCAA ranks them. It doesn't mean in popularity, or it doesn't mean in notoriety. It just means how society judges them. And there's some awesome athletes out there that are not getting as much press. The corner from San Diego State, I watched him last night, and hey, rookie, monster. The kid's a monster. So that's where the draft projections come, and then you got some that have phenomenal numbers. So that's where that comes from. That's why you see the big schools. What's happening now is they're kind of devaluing the, South Carolina states or, Appalachian State. They're looking at some of those kids and kind of devaluing them because, now you got kids from Tennessee getting drafted in the 7th round.
Right.
And they're still going off of that old thing. Well, his competition level is better than somebody else's. So that's why when a kid plays for, University of Buffalo, that's why they can sneak into camp, maybe be a, undrafted free agent and come in there and stick and stay like the linebacker did for the Raiders years ago. So that's how they sneak in that way. It's all about productivity. If you didn't get drafted, don't sweat it. Get in there and beat somebody. At the end of the day, it's about what you do on the field, not what you did in college.
Right. Right. It's so funny that you brought up that DB from San Diego State. Of course, I'm biased. We've already talked about that. But they're starting to draw comparisons to him and Robert Griffith, right? Back in the day. And he was a 1993 undrafted out of San Diego State, and he carved out a great career for himself because he was undrafted. He was hungry, and he burned the boats. So talk to us a little bit about these. I mean, what is there? Only 276 guys are actually drafted, right? And then you've got a whole shitload of guys that are going to get invited to these mini camps.
Right.
What happens to these guys that don't get drafted that put up some great numbers coming out? And went into the draft and didn't get drafted?
First thing they should do is call us.
That's right.
That's what we do. We present a presentation. Presentation is huge on how you're represented as far as the presentation of the athlete. Okay, somebody like me will give a detailed write-up, a detailed evaluation with numbers on it and strengths, and what they need to do to get better, and as well as what I think their status is. You have to have somebody speak for you. Please understand that an agent cannot speak for you as loudly as we can, because an agent probably has 4, 5, 6, 7 athletes, and the only ones that's going to make their money is the ones that were drafted. Right. Those are the only ones that's going to make their money. So don't get disillusioned that you're your agent's only client, because he has, he's paid like $3,000 or $4,000 to take that test to become an agent. He wants that turnaround money. So if you did not get drafted and you did not get invited to a rookie mini camp, then you need somebody out there, talking about you.
Right.
You need to be relevant. You need to have somebody like us or like me saying, hey, this kid can really play. Let me show you. Let me show you his practice footage. Let me show you his work ethic. Right. Let me show you what he does. How you going to turn this kid away? This kid can really play, and he has great numbers, so that's how you get in where you fit in. That's how we fit you in the door, because you got to remember this always. If you are a 5'10" receiver and you run a 4.3 40, and the team that you're trying to get onto, average receivers are 6'2" to 6'5", so that doesn't fit. So you have to fit the team's needs, and that's what a lot of people don't remember. They forget about, I'm better than him and I'm better than him. Yeah, but the team has a certain offense or a certain defense.
Right.
So you have to be intelligent enough to know, have your agent, I don't think I fit that team. I looked at the roster. Nobody on there looks like me, so don't waste my time, and then overseas is a good window if you get a great team. Now, we have great relationships, and I say we have great relationships with the European teams, and who is a dominant team that the NFL will really look at. Kind of when you start looking at where we're playing or where the NFL is playing, these games, these NFL games, you might want to kind of check that out, because they probably have a good relationship with the ELF, with the league over there. So it's kind of like they're trying to get I wouldn't say a farm system, but somewhere where if we travel there and we're playing there, it's because they already have a team that plays there. So just kind of read between the lines.
I love when you said that at Blueprint, we're not about representation, we're about presentation. Mm-hmm. And there's a big difference, and you touched on that. One of the things that, Erin and I have been, since we've been closely working with the NCAA and athletic directors and coaches and recruiters, what we're starting to realize is how important character is. And what I mean by that is, with the NIL and with the transfer portal as hot as it is, and kids bouncing all over the place, we had an athletic director tell us, the difference between a 4.7 and a 4.4 is character. If you can run a 4.4, bench 300 and squat 600, but if you're an asshole, you're a distraction. We don't want you on the team. We just don't want you. So, Erin, is there anything you want to jump in about the NFL draft, and any thoughts on everything before we move on to the NBA?
Nope. I'm just excited to see who makes it, what happens this next year. And yeah, I think it's going to be fun to watch these young men accomplish their dreams. So it's quite an accomplishment for them. So shout out to all those that did get drafted, all those that are going to work hard at minicamp to earn a spot. And anybody can make it if you want it bad enough. So yeah. That's I think the cool part is watching that. So, and of course I'm biased. I'm a huge Broncos fan. So I heard their draft picks were they had a lot of later rounds, which based on your statistics, Coach Greer, means hopefully they're good and they'll last.
Yeah.
So cheering on my Broncos and hoping they actually make it to the Super Bowl and win it this year.
Real quick, in 60 seconds or less, Diego Pavia, what are your thoughts?
Oh.
Coach Greer?
Oh, I think he's a winner. I think he's a Doug Flutie type guy. He's hard. I mean, he's harsh. I mean, Let's see. Flutie is good, but what's the quarterback from the Saints that played for years?
Drew Brees.
Yeah, he's a pistol like Drew Brees, because Drew Brees, he wasn't no joke. This kid can really play. Puts his foot in his mouth sometimes, but I mean, at his size, he backs it up and he tells you, "Come get me." So I think he'll do well. And you see, he was an undrafted free agent, but they signed him the first day.
Is that right?
That means he impressed the hell out of somebody.
Yeah, well, that's
With
great.
the Ravens?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let's not forget Kyrie Irving too, right? I mean, he was
Yep.
a little guy, and I think he's with Minnesota. Let's get into the NBA playoffs here. So then, speaking about Denver, Nuggets are out. So you brought up Oklahoma City. Coach Greer. I mean, I still go way back to when Oklahoma City had Westbrook, Durant, and Harden, and they couldn't put shit together. What's different about OKC now?
The thing is with them now is, they are masterful in what they do. I mean, those kids got to mature together for at least a year before it was even relevant. They play so well together because they came in mature. And the thing is, you got to realize a lot of these kids came in at 25, 24. They came in, they stayed all the way through college. Most of them, they came out a little bit early, and coming out early really doesn't benefit you in the NBA, because it's every day. Every day is there's something. You got to either train, you playing, you got to eat right, you got to rest. So that everyday schedule is kind of a monster. But the maturity and I don't like, I don't say I don't like. The guy is arrogant. The point guard, whatever his initials are, QVC or KSRP or whatever his name is, he's a monster. He can play. Then both the Jalen's, they can play. Then you got let's not forget about Chet. Chet can play. Then you got you got Ballhead coming from the Lakers. He can play. That was a big thing bringing him in.
Yeah.
So. I mean, they're undeniable, young. Their average age, I think, is like 27.
Wow.
So they're going to be dominant for a while. But you got to remember the history. They were horrible. When you get five, you get 5 first-round draft picks, you better be good or you're going to be without a job. I don't think Ime is going to be around too much longer. You can't lose with a team like Houston.
Right.
But you did bring in a cancer. And I ain't gonna say no names, KD, wherever he's been, except for the Warriors, you can't win because, and you're not around, you're not playing. Come on, man.
Yep. So it looks like, is your money on OKC to take it all?
I don't like OKC, but I don't like anybody in the East at all, so, and if I was to try to put any money on anybody, I'd have to go with San Antonio. I like San Antonio. If the big guy comes back, I like their energy. I'm an old head. I like their old coach. So that's who I'd go with. Lakers, no. I'd never go with the Lakers. Come on, man. I'm from Oakland.
Unbelievable. They've got so much talent, and they just, it's far beyond the days of Showtime, right? With Magic, Kareem, and Worthy, and all those guys. It's just not there anymore. And it's so amazing because I actually lived down in San Antonio for 2 years before I moved to Denver, and it's such a small market, but they got a strong history of NBA excellence. And obviously it starts with Pop, and then it goes Robinson, Tim Duncan, and Tony Parker, Ginobili, all that. It's a small market, but everyone thinks that in order to win, you got to go to New York. You got to go to LA. You just got to have a culture and you got to have a chemistry. Can you talk about that a little bit, Coach, on what it takes to win?
It's funny because you say a market. The Warriors, Golden State isn't a big market,
right?
It's Oakland where we were, and then we went to Chase Center in San Francisco, but it's not a huge market because it just isn't. So the thing is, New York is a conglomerate. I didn't like New York. Coming up, I didn't like the Celtics. Philly I liked because of Dr. J, and some of those other McGinnis and, some of the other guys. But I think it's development. It's all how you develop what you have. A lot of people, they love the Warriors when they were winning. Kerr was the greatest. But when they're losing, it's like, well, how come you didn't play Kuminga more? And how come you didn't play this? It's because it's a system. I can't watch basketball with my wife and my mother-in-law because they're coaches. They know everything. And the thing is, well, why weren't they under the basket? Why didn't they get that rebound? It's because of Kerr's offense. Everybody's a shooter. When they draw people out, and they make the shots, it looks beautiful. But when they draw people out and they miss it, we don't have anybody rebounding. It makes him look like, well, he doesn't know what he's doing. But the guy has 4 championships just with the Warriors.
Right.
And he's got, playing with the Bulls. So the coaching styles are so different. It's just like Ime. Ime is not a teacher. He didn't teach those. He's not teaching the young Thompson. What he is, and I don't think he's a scheme guy because he always gets beat in the playoffs.
Right.
You always get beat. And he started tanking towards the end of the season. They didn't look real good. Look at Denver. I thought Bickerstaff was a great not Denver. I'm sorry. I don't want to talk about you, Denver. I know you're in remission. Talk about Detroit. What happened to that?
Right.
Monster, but, the thing is, I think a lot has to go with experience and you have to be prepared to play. That is a whole different level of the game. And the stakes are so much higher. And if you're not fully prepared, then it's going to be a problem. It will be a problem.
Well, let's not forget, back to Golden State and Steve Kerr. Obviously, I'm a huge Arizona fan. Steve Kerr, check out his pedigree. He played for Lute Olson, right? Arguably one of the best college coaches of all time. Then he goes to the Bulls and gets coached by Phil Jackson. Never mind the talent he had around him.
Yes.
Then he goes to San Antonio and gets coached by Pop. And then he goes on. I think he's got 10 rings, 4 as a coach and 6 as a player.
I think he does. And they're undeniable. You come up with the best of the best. He played with Jordan.
Right.
And it's like, how do you not become a dynamic coach? But he knows his people. He knows Draymond. People can say whatever they want about Draymond, but Draymond is strategically probably one of the best players that played the game, because if you can guard Wemby, Jokic, that the guy in Minnesota, the ball head, who is that? The guy that did the COVID thing. Rudy
Gobert.
Yeah, Gobert. You can guard those guys on a consistent basis and defeat them. They're gonna beat you sometimes because Draymond is 6'6", Wemby is 7'3", 4 and 5. So I think what he put together was really dominant, but I think they all got old at the same time. They got old the same. Curry's still doing his thing. I think Draymond's still doing his thing. I'd like him to shoot more, but he does a masterful job, and I hope he comes back for this 1 year when everybody's healthy.
Awesome. Erin, what are your thoughts on the NBA before we move over to the W?
I like the NBA when it was Magic, Bird. I'm old school. My dad played basketball, so that's what we watched growing up on TV. And who doesn't love the 90s Bulls? It's fun to go watch these guys now, but like that to me is like basketball. So I don't really have a dog in the fight. For these guys, again, it's to compete at that level, to win a championship. It is a lot of work. These guys have to grind and play a lot of games. And so
every day.
Similar to the Stanley Cup, man, it is a dog fight, which is, a little bit different than the NFL, where there's one game, 1 weekend, obviously very different game, but these guys are grinding. So shout out to my Utah Mammoth. We're going to take down the Golden Knights of Las Vegas and have our first. I'm like, let's keep the run going because it's pretty cool that they're in the playoffs. I think their second year as a club. So, and I'm a big Avs fan, but all those guys are on either side of either ice hockey or basketball right now. They're competing.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Oh, yeah. It's at the end of the season. These guys are beat up and tired. Now the mental aspect steps in.
Right.
We're going to move over. We got opening season for the W. You know, one of the things Coach Greer and Erin and I talk about a lot is how athletes are their own worst enemy. You got the WNBA that has every opportunity to really shine, but they kind of shoot themselves in the foot. You know, you've got an opportunity with Caitlin Clark, who's arguably just absolutely phenomenal. And then you bring in this race baiting nonsense. And, you know, the W is always talking about, you know, we need to get paid what we're worth. You're not putting anybody in the seats. You're subsidized by the NBA, but you have an opportunity to be fantastic and excellent. Coach Greer, what's it going to take for the W to be excellent and just really shine?
I think that, you know, I think the biggest thing they have to get back to basketball. Basketball is the biggest thing. I think that, you know, the off-season stuff is so, you know, that's non-basketball related. You know, the commercial. I'm glad they're getting every due that they deserve. But I just, you know, like even in the NBA, I hate every foul is contested, yelling at the referees. I referee, you know, I refereed for years, you know, and, you know, just play the game.
Right.
The call may not go your way this time. Just walk away. You know, the facial expressions, the yelling at the refs, that takes away from the game. I know why. I love women's basketball. I love the passion. I love the organization. I love the strategic plays that they run. I love the matchups. I think they play at a higher level, you know, than the men, but athletic level, the men, because, you know, some of them are men. Some of the men are just, you know, Wemby 7'4". So, you know, there's not too many 7'4" women that can do the things he does. But I'm just saying it doesn't make them lesser athletes. I think they're smarter in the way that they configure the plays, the way they do things, the execution. I think is great. I think one of the major reasons why men, you know, of a certain demographic and age don't watch it is because of the extra stuff. You know, the screaming at the refs, the complaining, you know, the men do it too, you know, but, you know, I think it's a little bit demonstrative when some of the women do it because they brought it from college.
Right.
You know, and let's just play the game. I love the game. I love watching a great game. You know, I don't watch a lot of NBA because of the flopping, the cattiness, you know, talking smack, you know, talking stuff to the ref. I don't like that. I like to see execution. I like to see, you know, play the game. Hell, I watched 2 softball games, collegiate softball games the other day. I love that. That's crazy. I love it. Texas, Oklahoma State, you know, Texas Tech. I mean, there was some monster teams, man.
Oh, yeah.
But see, the thing is, the W's going to be good. They got their money now. Now just play the game.
Yep.
You know, stop tripping. Just play the game. And I think the biggest tragedy in the WNBA is they don't have enough teams. There's so many talented players, and you don't have enough teams for it. And then you bring in 2 this year, 1 next year. Bring in 4.
Right.
You know, I know there's investors out there. Look at Unrivals leagues, which I made you guys watch this year.
Yeah.
Unrivals league is ridiculously popular. And they have those 8 or 9 teams from scratch.
Right.
Doing things with the dub. You know, they keep threatening us with this, you know, ESPN W. I mean, where is it? Right. I want to see the ESPN W. It's supposed to be a channel just for, you know, the pro league and the college league, the women's sports. Bring it on. You know, I got, you know, granddaughters. I want to sit back and watch games with them. But the dub, man, I think it's going to blow up this year. I think there's going to be a lot more parity. I just want to see a lot more basketball and I want to see less of that off the field stuff. You know, players have opinion about teams and what they think. Just play the game. Shut up.
That's it. You know, that's we've talked about this. One of the last frontiers about sports, which makes it great, is it really is meritocracy. We don't give a shit how tall you are, how short you are, what color you are. If you can play,
Right.
You're gonna be starting. So when the W brings this racism in about the only reason why Caitlin Clark is this because she's white and all that, that's gonna just drive people away. We're tired of that.
Yeah.
And two things, Coach. You brought up the USFL earlier. I remember when I was in high school how excited I was about the USFL because it gave young kids an opportunity to play the double opportunity, USFL or the NFL.
Right.
But let's take it back to the AFL and the NFL. Can you imagine if Rival and the W just had a head-on collision towards the best of the best?
Yeah.
That would bring in ratings. You brought, Erin brought this up in the conversation, and Erin, you're absolutely right. Going back to college and the NIL, so many men are paid for possibilities, right?
Right.
Potential. Whereas in NIL and the women's, these softball players, they're off the chain. They are amazing, and they're earning every dime as they should. So, before we close out here, I know we'd like to keep it to a half hour. I personally think what's going to just blow the top is women's flag football. What are your opinions on that, Coach Greer?
I think it's huge. I had the opportunity to train some women in the game, and I think women and men are only different for obvious reasons, but the intellect, the power, the speed, the desire, there's no difference. I shout out to my daughter. Flying Blackhawks. A monster, went to West Point and killed it, and now she's a captain. So I think that, and I had to train her. She never did pull-ups before. She said, "Dad, I got to do 13." I said, okay. Started off, couldn't do one, but she was a monster athlete. Ran the 200, the 400. She was a monster. Played basketball, all state in basketball. But we started off with the training, just arching your back, pulling, just arching your back. And then we had one, and we had two. Now she's doing like 40 because of the work ethic. That's all that matters. How you position yourself in this life and how you work towards goals that's the common denominator. It doesn't matter where you came from. If you don't have money, I used to work out with this one coach, a bar and 2 cement cans, coffee cans that he made cement and cemented them to the bar. That's how we did curls. Find a way to work out.
Yeah.
Work out, get on a routine, get some consistency, and then start measuring yourself against somebody else. Or look at a YouTube video, and then you'll look up and say, "I'm doing more than that person. Look how much money they're making." Then you go and compete. Don't talk about being behind the 8 ball. That's one thing I talk about our athletes. Well, I didn't make it because don't want to hear it. Tell me how you're going to make it. Well, coach didn't like me. Don't want to talk about it. Don't know the coach. Don't know your situation. What can you do now? Show me on film what you can do to project yourself to that next level. And that's girls, boys, men, and women.
One of the many things I love about Coach Greer, old school, just laying it down like it is. Let's close out with Mama Bear. I know you're a big advocate. You've got a daughter playing her senior year of softball, so I know you're big on softball and women's sports. Close us out, Erin, talking about everything ladies.
Well, I think the next great sport that's going to really be up and coming is actually the professional softball league that the MLB is funding. Those girls, if you haven't watched professional softball, which at this collegiate level, Texas, Oklahoma, Alabama, Tennessee, Nebraska, you are missing out on some of the most phenomenal athletes that you will ever get the opportunity to watch. The pitcher out of Tennessee that pitches over almost near 80 miles an hour. She had 11 strikeouts this week in a game. She is unbelievable. I'm fucking unbelievable. You are missing out. It is a fun game to watch. I love
show, Erin.
I love to go watch softball. It's fun. It's fun at all levels. But it's really fun when they compete at that level. Because those girls are incredibly, incredibly athletic. And so I'm a big softball fan. I love women's basketball. I played basketball growing up. I love to see the sport. I want to see Caitlin Clark just take it to that Michael Jordan level. Shut up the haters, leave it all out on the court and show people why you are going to be the greatest.
Live up to it.
You got to just put up or shut up.
That's
Yeah.
it.
And, you know, and I think flag football is going to just continue to creep up. I think as we build into the Olympics,
Yep.
I think that's going to be fun to watch too. But
Yep.
Yep.
everybody tune in to college softball. It's about to get really exciting, especially
No
with the World Series coming up here. So do it.
Yep.
Well, I will tell you real quick, you know, about 6 months ago, I went up to a women's here in Denver. I went up to Fort Collins, and it was an all-day women's flag football tournament.
Oh, wow.
And there were some incredible athletes. But I will tell you this, pulling back the curtain, I heard more trash talking that actually made me blush more than I've ever heard any men. So the women know how to trash talk too,
Wow.
but they also know at the end of the game, it's just a game, and they are good about sportsmanship.
That's
Team,
good.
let's get back to sportsmanship on all levels, pro, college, and youth sports. It's really
Mhm.
important. And on that one, Coach Greer, Erin, if you guys don't have any parting shots or comments, we'll just close it out. We'll see you next week.
Hey, keep hustling every day. Keep hustling.
That's it.
All right.